Haha, we're back to talk about more anime fights, baby! And yes, this video was again kindly sponsored and approved by Oasis Games and Naruto Online. Yes, that's right, Naruto Online came back to sponsor another video about anime fights. It's a free-to-play Naruto MMO which I will be talking about in more depth later, but for now you can sign up in the link in the description. And with that intro done, let's get to it. Just can't get enough, can we? There's no way I could ever cover everything I wanted to talk about, and of course everything you wanted to hear about anime fights in just one video. So here we go again. Let's talk about and analyze 5 more fights in anime and break down how they can make fights work. This, of course, is not a ranked top list, but just ways to highlight some elements of a good fight scene and show you why they are good. So get your Linkin Park Top 10 Watch Mojo anime fight scenes out of here, because this is what we're going to be doing today.
Breakdown, breakdown. Listen, breakdown, breakdown. Listen, breakdown, breakdown.
Hold up, guys, hold up. I know we're using this song now, but we're not going to be covering any JoJo's fights in this video. Oh, come on, guys. Not everything in the world can revolve around JoJo's. Yes, it can. Let's start things off by talking about one of the most romanticized objects in the entertainment media. Guns. There is nothing cooler than a good gunfight, and this is no exception in anime. But many of the best shootouts I can think of are dangerously close to just being a straight up action scene rather than a fight scene, which I can and probably will dedicate a whole other video to. So I decided to limit this to just one-on-one gun duels, of which there are still plenty of great examples. Trigun and Cowboy Bebop have many classic shootouts, Kanan was quite overlooked even though he had many great gunfights, and Gide vs Odosaku from Bungo Stray Dogs was all sorts of badass. But ironically enough, the coolest gunfight I've seen in recent memory isn't even from a gun-centric or action-oriented anime, but is of course Mami vs Homura from Madoka 3 Rebellion. As I said before, there is nothing cooler than a good gunfight, so how do we make that even more fun? Well, you add in elements you wouldn't normally see in one, like time dilation powers, magical girls, gun fu, striking visuals, and it's these blending of elements that makes this fight work so well. It's nothing like your usual realistic gun battle that revolves around tactical positioning, cover, and aim, but its goal is just to give you a fun time marveling at all these ridiculous elements you are seeing on screen. Neither side seems to have much for tactics aside from just spray and pray, with enough rough aiming to make a fucking stormtrooper proud. But when you're seeing things like bullets colliding in midair sparking up the background, enough bullet streaks stopped in time to make Dio Brando feel inadequate, airborne acrobatic gunplay, and of course not forgetting seeing fucking magical girls in a gun battle, who the hell really cares? It's these individual components you don't normally see together that allows us to just marvel at the spectacle. Every stage they bring in something new and interesting to add to the mix. From Homura just pulling out bigger and more powerful guns up her ass, to even Gun Kata, which if you didn't know is a fictional close quarters gunplay resembling martial arts that probably would be really stupid and impractical if ever attempted in real life, but it just looks really fucking cool. So what do they do to one-up that element? How about Gun Kata in mid-fucking air, alright? It's the kind of fast-paced, unrealistic action you see from watching gameplay of Bayonetta or Devil May Cry that tries nothing more but to bring you gratuitous gun action that you can't help but just sit back and be amazed by. And finally, on top of all that, you have that satisfying moment when time unpauses and all those hundreds of bullets frozen in the streams go flying everywhere. Overall, this fight shows us how to blend many cool elements into a single fight that you can only see in something like anime. For a non-action oriented show, it delivers one of the best fight scenes anime has to offer, and from a series perspective, it was a treat to finally see what Mami can do when she actually has her fucking head in the game. Okay, you don't need to say it, I'll do it myself. There's a lot more to what defines a battle beyond simply fighting, and a genre that's always given an interesting dynamic to this concept is in sports anime. Even if these aren't fights in the traditional sense, they are a combat of skill and can often get us way more hyped than their traditional counterparts. Senna and Shin's final showdown in iShield 21 was the ultimate culmination of 150 episodes worth of rivalry, and all of Kagami and Aomine's clashes in Kuroko were nothing short of Super Saiyan basketball spectacular. But if we're talking the greatest battle in sports anime and one that ticks all the boxes of what makes a traditional fight brilliant at that, It could only be Takamura versus Brian Hawk from Hajime no Ippo. One of the many things that Ippo has always stood out for among its peers is just how much passion and heart goes into the motivations of its characters in any given fight. It always feels like there's something huge on the line, not only for both competitors in the ring, but every single spectator outside of it as well. It's this backbone that makes every single punch, every new technique, and every drop of blood spilled holds narrative weight beyond the fact that it's just fucking hype as shit, isn't it? How it continually does this and why it still manages to work after well over 1,000 chapters is because of the way it actually mirrors its real life professional sports rather than just showing a group of guys having a gay old time getting to nationals. When you look at real life sports, you have an ongoing narrative that naturally forms, filled with larger than life characters, and it's this natural storytelling that makes sports like MMA and boxing as interesting as the sport itself. Especially in contact sports, people buy into the personalities and natural charisma of the competitors. This is why someone like Conor McGregor is as popular as he is. If he was simply defined by his talents in the octagon, he wouldn't be a household name. He's a household name because he's such an outspoken personality, one who refuses to be ignored, talks a big game, and then backs it up by winning. In other words, he's a bit of a cunt. But it's characters like this that draws eyes to the product, gets pay-per-view buys, and keeps you coming back for more. Then there is a man like Floyd Mayweather, who has a story as simple as you can get of a man who is undefeated. And so, fight after fight, people will tune in just to see if he will finally receive that first loss. Which is why even in his own anime, I feel like Ippo is far less interesting a character to watch than Takamura, as you can see all these elements come into play in this fight. Both competitors are both undefeated going into it, they both have very wild, confident personalities and have very clear motivations for winning. We may have only known Hawk for a few episodes, but he's been built up well as a natural antagonist in all this, as we all want to see him lose, and the press conference drama only serves to immensely hype us up before the match even starts. It's a far cry from your traditional modern sports anime, as the stage feels much grander, and we don't have to worry about yaoi tension in between either, cause god these characters are fuck ugly. By the time the fight happens, we already feel the energy of the crowd, and in turn know exactly why they want to see Takamura take the belt. But through internal dialogue and being much closer to these characters than it's possible to be in reality, it's all taken a step beyond and ramped up to the nth degree. We see the immense struggle that Takamura had to go through just to get this fight, his relationship with his coach and his desire to prove his orthodox style on the world stage. We know how much this means for him. This is why every blow exchanged on stage has a tremendous amount of weight behind it, and I'm not talking about the physical force. The punches mean something and relates to how each of the characters has been presented. Throughout the fight we see a mix of methodologies, intelligent tactics, raw aggression from both sides, and eventually pure fighting spirit once it feels as though both fighters have burned through everything they have. Ippo, and this fight in particular, is a masterclass in how to hype us up for a fight, how to get us invested in every punch thrown, and how to absolutely deliver through with that hype, building up to one final punch that puts a full stop to not only the fight itself, but the incredible journey we've watched Takamura undertake as a character, that you can't help but just jump up and shout, fuck yes. Now, if there's one fight dynamic that's easy to completely fuck up, it's battles that involve one individual against a large group or army. Nothing says badass like one man taking on a group of people, and when it's done well, it can be a spectacle like no other and often works towards defining the strengths of the character in question. In anime and manga terms, many would agree that the most iconic instance of a fight like this would be the clash between Guts versus 100 Knights. But unfortunately, due to Berserk having never gotten the adaptation it truly deserves, this scene falls short technically in both anime. And while there have been many good little examples scattered all over anime, One Punch Man, Sword of a Stranger, Afro Samurai, if there is one fight in anime that truly captures how to make a character feel like they are a one-man army, and does so with pure class and style, we again look towards Naruto Shippuden, in Madara Uchiha versus the allied shinobi forces. Now, the key to keeping a fight of this kind interesting is by making it feel as though the individual in question is legitimately a level beyond their adversaries, because in reality you can't have one man fight hand to hand with hundreds of enemies at once unless he was a fucking centipede. So in fiction, particularly in old kung fu movies, the technique to make it feel as though one fighter can take on a large group single-handedly often revolves around the manipulation of background characters. The main fighter in question will only be interacting with a maximum of 1 or 2 people at once per rotation, but through having so many other characters in the background moving in and out of shot, the illusion is created depicted of an unstoppable badass who can take down an army. In this fight, the most impressive and captivating sequences are the ones in which Madara is engaging in hand-to-hand combat early on. Now, there is a few ways to choreograph a fight like this, but if you look at some of the best martial arts scenes of this type, you can see that there is a certain rhythm to the movements. One action flows from one movement to another, and then to another, and then to another, which makes sense in context because the one person fighting has to dispatch each opponent as quickly and efficiently as possible. What this does is showcase this free-flowing combat that not only emphasizes the skill gap for that one person, but also looks really fucking cool. And you can see this play out with the way Madara dispatches his opponents, always flowing with the momentum of his movements, along with the efficiency of each attack, from the use of the explosive paper to the arm breaks to the sword play. The speed and fluidity is what makes this work, but the advantage it has over normal martial arts films is that it can incorporate superpowers with the choreography without making it look stupid. See, if you add some kind of superpower element in live action, it can come off as kind of cartoonish, which is fine if you're going for a light-hearted, silly tone as seen here in Kung Fu Hustle, but played off seriously, it just looks ridiculous. The Madara fighter can get away with playing this off as totally serious without having it look out of place, cheesy, or cartoonish because, well, it's a fucking cartoon! Allowing him to do things like leap across the battlefield, dispatching every opponent in his path like he's a murderous fucking Beyblade. The reason this fight stands above all others of its kind in anime is because of the way it blends in genuine martial arts choreography with anime superpowers and does it stylishly. And you may think that I love talking about Naruto fights a bit too much, but it's because the series genuinely has some of the best executed fight scenes in anime on a technical level, but not at a cost. Overall, the animation quality of the series can be largely inconsistent, since Studio Period seems to have this sound tactic of basically using their entire year's resources on a single episode, leading to fights like these. With beautiful sequences like seeing a ninja skillfully dispatching his opponents in a cloud of steam with his fireballs raining down from the sky. This fight was meant to build Madara up as a big final boss villain, and I'm glad the sequence showcased some of his more intimate fighting skills, rather than just going straight for the cheap overpowered abilities like casually dropping the odd meteor on the bloody battlefield. But seeing as the opening of this fight has some of the most slick and fluid choreography we've seen in an anime fight, it does well overall in showing that Naruto really does know how to present a final villain. Now, with that all said and done, this is the time I get to talk about the sponsor for this video. And we've done this before, so no bullshit this time, let's get down to it. If I've not made it abundantly clear so far, there are a lot of moments in Naruto that I genuinely love, from the original and Shippuden, and playing through Naruto Online allows me to relive some of those favourite moments when I was just a kid getting into anime, along with some of my favourite fights from the franchise. It's a free-to-play MMO browser game that's officially licensed, which you can definitely tell by the surprising production values it has for a browser game. You play through the original Naruto story with an original character, and along the way meet all your favorite characters who can become part of your ninja dream team. Crap, hold on a second. Who can become part of your ninja dream team. Though there is more depth than just using characters you like. I've talked about this before, so this time I got my editor to try it out, and he enjoyed it enough that he got further than I did last time, so we can show off some more of the features and characters that show up. Oh, 10-10, everyone's favorite ninja ever. How's the screen time treating you? If this sounds interesting to you, you can sign up and try the game for free by clicking on the link in the description, because I think it's pretty great that we can get sponsored to talk about something we love. Anime fights. So if anything, I think that's worth a chance. But speaking of anime fights, let's get back on that topic. Moving on, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that one of the first things I think of when it comes to fights in anime is the use of superpowers and power systems in general. A good power system can add a layer of depth to a fight and make even the simplest of brawls more interesting, and there have been plenty of examples of that in anime. Chakra from Naruto was, I'm sure, many of our first introduction to a proper power system. Devil Fruits in One Piece gave us a wide array of weird abilities that adhere to real-world traits, whereas stands in JoJo's prove there is really no limit to how imaginative and out there a character's ability can be. But to me, there is no power system that truly captures the brilliance of variety and spectacle while still complying by its own strict set of rules better than Nen from Hunter x Hunter. And while I might be cheating a bit by not actually talking about one particular fight scene, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about how and why a well thought out power system enhances a fight. For a power system that throughout the series produces such an expansive array of very weird, complicated and wild abilities, it's always amazed me how it never once didn't make sense. Nen is so strictly defined and well explained that even the most powerful techniques in later arcs still abide by the rules laid out at its inception. And every ability, no matter how complicated, can be logically deducted from these building blocks. It's a system of classes, each with their own clearly defined strengths and weaknesses that works almost like a competitive video game, as no one ability is too powerful or cannot be countered. To me, it does wonders knowing that even the most seemingly overpowered characters have legitimate strategy that can be used to counter them, and it's less of a case of if a counter strategy exists, and more of a question of if the strategy can be successfully executed. It's almost as if Togashi himself wasted countless hours being able to play RPGs to be able to come up with a system as balanced and intricate as this, but who knows where he'd get the time to do that, eh? What this can do is add a layer of complexity to a fight while still making it a spectacle. Think of it like watching a competitive video game. It's a sight to watch the mechanical skills of the top players in the world and watch them do things you didn't even know was possible. But what sets apart the best players aren't just mechanical skill, but also game knowledge. Having a good grasp of the system you are playing in means that you can deduce your opponent's strategy and move to counter it. And part of the spectacle, if you're familiar with the game they are playing, is understanding the metagame going on while also being able to see the strategy be executed. And this is the exact feeling you get when watching a Nen battle. In the world of Hunter x Hunter, having strong fighting skills is as important as having an understanding of how Nen works. And you can see this balance when the top level fighters do battle. When Evogan battles Kurapika, for example, even though his powers are as simple and cliche as a power can get, he's super strong and can punch things really hard, he still uses his head and doesn't only rely on his strengths. He has a keen battle sense and uses his wit to try to deduce the true nature of his opponent's abilities to try and find any weaknesses he can exploit. A person's knowledge of their opponent's Nen ability can make or break a fight, which is why for as strong as Uvogin was, and even though he's far from stupid, he still gets absolutely decimated. It's all about advantages. Kurapika's abilities were specifically honed to take down him and his group, and has taken huge preparations to ensure his victory. From an outsider perspective, it may seem like Kurapika is stupidly overpowered, but in the context of the fight, he's only truly overpowered in this exact scenario. And in many series would feel like a genuine arse pull, but because of what we know about Nen and Kurapika's history, it makes perfect sense. Think about an ability like Killer Queen bites the dust from Diamond is Unbreakable. It's only useful in the exact scenario it happens in, and it happens seemingly out of nowhere. It just works. But the technique Kurapika uses in this fight very much abides by the rule of Nen. He's created this ability for the sole purpose of dealing with Uvogin and his group, whom we know Kurapika has been plotting revenge against since episode 1. He does so through a very specific set of limitations, which, if found out, could be disastrously exploited. And the way it works is a masterclass in how you make an overpowered ability without technically being overpowered. This fight is just one of many that makes Nen such an interesting system to explore, so let's give Tagashi a big round of applause for coming up with such a system.
Stop putting Dragon Ball in
Oh my god. Oh, you know, we can just do that. Moving on, mecha as a genre has always had a long history of relying on the who has the biggest gun contest of resolving conflict, and it's this that makes a lot of the best fights in mecha fall down to the interesting tactical decisions and character interactions to make them stand out. There are surprisingly few great mecha fights out there that operate as a battle of technology, with the specs of the machine genuinely adding to the action instead of taking away from it. Hey, remember that time when Fuck Off Energy Wings took over tactics in Code Geass? Cause I know I do! Shows like the original SDF Macross, Eureka 7, and a lot of the Universal Century Gundam, however, integrate their technology into conflict incredibly well, and a fantastic example of a battle that shows exactly how technology should be used to enhance the viewer experience would be the penultimate showdown of the Full Armor Gundam and Psycho Zaku in Gundam Thunderbolt. Now, Gundam as a franchise has always fully utilized the historical implications of how great an effect the advancements in weapons technology have on the outcome of war, particularly with how deep Gundam's lore goes in regards to mobile suit technology development, with the Zeon and Earth Federation having a constant dick measuring contest. And coming from an engineering background myself, seeing the development and conflict of fictitious technologies in mechas does wonders in stroking the engineering boner in me. Technology. So as good as the stories behind the pilots are in this fight, I wanted to focus purely on the mobile suits and their technology and how it's used in this battle. On one side we have the FA-78 Full Armor Gundam, a mobile suit that out of context looks pretty over the top and ridiculous, but these shields, heavy armor and propellant tanks are all there with the purpose of safely navigating and engaging in battle within the dangerous asteroid-filled terrain of the Thunderbolt sector. And on the other side of the battlefield you have the Zeon-developed MS-06R Psycho Zaku, a similarly ridiculous looking mobile suit spec'd for super high mobility above all else, and does this at the cost of an arm and a leg. No, seriously, only quadruple amputees can pilot this thing. Just by looking at the designs of both suits, you can see the technology pissing match they are having with each other, because they just look... Technology. And over the course of the battle, we see every single seemingly impractical peripheral of each machine used, making it clear to the viewer that they aren't simply there for aesthetics alone. From the very destructive force of their main weaponry to the ridiculous speeds at which the Zaku enters the battlefield with the large propellant boosters on its back, the Gundam's extra shield are shown to allow it to attack whilst defending simultaneously, whilst the wide array of thrusters that cover the legs and backpack of the Zaku allow it to seamlessly weave and dodge around enemy fire, with the simple established fact that it's only able to deliver such precise control because of the machine's inhumane control system. system. One of the greatest things this battle shows is that when it comes down to mechanical design in science fiction, functionality is paramount, and as opposed to a clash of fighting styles you see in a traditional fight, it's actually a clash of design philosophy. But it also never ignores the basic principles you need to consider when in a fight. From the way the buildings are used as cover, to the full armor using the grip on his feet for a surprising turnaround, to the t-shirt that lands on the Zaku blocking visibility. It's these little details that sell the idea that even when piloting these mechanical beasts, with technology far beyond our understanding, it still takes skill and thought to win a fight, and not just, you know, fucking spamming energy beams in every conceivable direction. As the battle draws to a close, whilst technology is what made this fight stand out to me, it's the story behind the pilots that leaves such a resonating impression in the finale. With the Zaku rendered inactive, an incredible sequence of static electricity from a kiss in a flashback sequence from one of the pilots transitions into a thunderbolt that lacerates the battlefield, shocking the Zaku's circuits back into action, and with this final collision, draws the battle to a close.
I don't understand! Why the hell can't I beat him? I understand now, Carla. Getting to meet you like this, that was my miracle.
Now, aside from superpowers, samurai, and giant robots, what's the one thing that Japanese media is known for by mainstream culture? That's right, monsters. Titanic organic creatures doing battle causing the casual earthquake, which have been an iconic part of Japanese culture since Godzilla came out of the country in the 50s. But for as iconic as this is, there surprisingly isn't so many giant monster anime to choose from. Rasafon certainly takes the cake for the most emotional monster battle to ever be put on screen. The Titan fights in Attack on Titan was a literal wild and intense clash of titans. But if we're going to be talking about giant monster fights, there is one scene that still stands to this day as one of the most iconic scenes to ever come out of anime, and that is of course Asuka versus the Eva series from End of Evangelion. Okay, I know these are technically mechs, but with the organic design and characteristics of the Avas, this fight plays out far less like automated machines doing battle and more like a fight between kaiju. From the way the Ava series begin by ominously flying in a circle like vultures ready to pick apart their prey, to the signature detailed environmental damage that is present in any kaiju fight, to the beautiful violence and grotesque way that the fight ends that sells the animalistic vibe. It's a great example of visual storytelling which, combined with Buck's air playing in the background, gives off the vibe that this is a prolonged funeral procession more than a fight, and that's exactly what it's meant to represent. Asuka's last stand. But what this fight does better than any other anime fight before or after it is how well it sells the idea that these are titanic beings wrecking an entire landscape. See, the problem with a lot of fights involving giant robots and monsters is that they just don't feel, well, giant. If you sit back and actually think about how a skyscraper would move if it had a pair of legs, even the simplest of movements would take a lot of effort as there is so much weight behind it. But you don't see this with the agile movements in a lot of giant robot fights, and the illusion that they are gargantuan beasts are lost when they are effortlessly performing hyperspeed 360 no-scope acrobatics like they're auditioning for season 2 of Yuri on Ice. On speed. Even if it can look cool. A modern example of something that shows this well is in Pacific Rim, which shouldn't be surprising considering how similar the concepts are to Evangelion, and might have even gotten inspiration from this scene. Part of the reason these fights feel larger than life is because everything about them feels massive. Every movement is slow and deliberate. The wind-up to every punch feels like an eternity compared to a normal one. But what this does is give the thing a sense of mass. There's momentum, there's force, and most importantly, there's weight behind every blow. A literal fuck ton of it, which is exactly what you'd expect when you're watching two skyscrapers playing a game of fisticuffs against each other. All these elements are quite clearly evident in the fight. The slow, detailed movement, the way she wrestles against the momentum of the Ava, and the monumental force behind every blow. These look, feel, and move like giant robots should, and just because of the pacing of the movements are slower, it doesn't detract from the impact at all, as it allows us to build anticipation for every hit and gives us a proper sense of scale. This scene is absolutely legendary in anime history, and deservingly so. It lays to rest the story arc for one of the most iconic characters in anime, executing it beautifully with animation that still stands out to this day, and I certainly can't think of a better way to send off a video about fight scenes than with this one. And that's all I had time to cover today. Again, thanks to Nino and also Barkashif for helping me research and also write this video. But if there's one thing doing this video has taught me, is that there are a whole load of scenes and elements I want to talk about in anime that are not strictly fight scenes. So I'll probably have to make more videos like this in the future. And for the last time, thank you very much to Naruto Online for sponsoring this video. I've talked about the game enough, so I will leave it all up to you to click on the link in the description and sign up if you wish. It'll support the channel, and if they are happy with it as well, we could possibly make more videos like this in the future, which would be great. Now, if you're also one of those people who clicked on a fight video and complained that there was a guy actually talking about the fights instead of just mindlessly showing them, go fuck yourselves. Hey guys, hope you liked the video. If you enjoyed this video, then you would probably like my previous anime fights video, which you can see on the left, or you can also check out some of my other stuff too. And as always, if you want to keep updated on my latest doings, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Anyway, that's it for me this time. I've been Giguk, and I'll see you all next time.